Dale Mercer had been running the same garbage route in Clover Hill, Ohio for 11 years. He knew every house on that street the way a librarian knows every shelf. He knew which driveway had the dog that never barked until you turned your back. He knew which old man left a cold Gatorade on top of his bin every July 4th. He knew the rhythms of the neighborhood better than most people who lived in it. That's how he noticed the ramp. It sat on the left side of a pale yellow house at 412 Birchwood Drive. Wooden, homemade. It ran from the front porch down to the sidewalk at a low angle, and it had clearly been built by someone who cared. The angles were clean, the rails were solid. But that was a long time ago. Now the wood had gone gray and soft, the kind of soft that gives when you press your thumb into it. Two of the boards near the bottom had cracked clean through. The handrail on the right side was pulling away from its post. Dale stopped the truck and looked at it for a full 5 seconds. Then he grabbed the bin, emptied it, rolled it back, and drove on. He thought about it the rest of his shift. Her name was Margaret Tolliver, 71 years old. Dale had seen her exactly 4 times in 11 years, twice on her porch with a cup of coffee, once checking her mailbox, and once sitting in her wheelchair at the edge of the driveway watching a thunderstorm roll in like it was a movie. She always waved. He always waved back. He knew the wheelchair. He knew the ramp was the only way she got in and out of that house. He pulled out his phone that afternoon and searched the cost of pressure-treated lumber. He wrote some numbers on the back of a gas receipt. He sat in his truck in the lot behind the depot and did the math twice. Then he called his brother-in-law, Kevin. "You free Saturday?" Dale asked. "Depends," Kevin said. "What are we doing?" "Building a ramp." A pause. "Whose ramp?" "Lady on my route. Her old one's rotting out." Another pause, longer this time. "She know you're coming?" "No." Kevin laughed a little. "Okay, what time?" Dale also called his buddy Marcus, who had framed houses for 6 years before switching to HVAC. Marcus said yes before Dale finished the sentence. Then Marcus called his cousin Brendan, who showed up Saturday morning in a truck that still had drywall dust on the dashboard, a thermos of black coffee in one hand and a nail gun bag over his shoulder. 4 men, 7 in the morning. The hardware store opened at 6, and Dale had been there at 6:04. He spent $214 on pressure-treated 2x6s, deck screws, post brackets, and 2 lengths of steel pipe for the handrails. He put it on his card and didn't mention it to anyone. They pulled up to 412 Birchwood at 7:20 and sat for a second, all 4 of them looking at the house from the truck. "We probably should have told her," Marcus said. "Maybe," Dale said. He got out. He knocked on the door, waited, knocked again. The curtain in the front window moved. Then the door opened, and Margaret Tolliver was there in her wheelchair, wearing a housecoat and reading glasses, looking at Dale the way you look at something you can't immediately categorize. "You're my garbage man," she said. "Yes, ma'am, Dale Mercer." He pointed at the ramp. "I've been watching that for a few weeks. I brought some guys. We'd like to replace it if that's all right with you." She looked past him at the truck, at Kevin, Marcus, and Brendan standing in the yard holding lumber like they were waiting for a photo to be taken. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know," Dale said. "We'd like to." She stared at him for a long moment. Her jaw tightened slightly, the way people's jaws tighten when they're deciding whether or not to cry. "I've been meaning to call someone," she said quietly. "I just didn't." She stopped. "It's been hard to get around without it." Dale nodded. "We'll have it done by noon." They pulled the old ramp apart in 40 minutes. The wood came up in pieces, some of it crumbling at the edges, the bottom boards almost completely black with rot underneath. Marcus shook his head when he saw the substructure. "She's been using this," he said. "Apparently," Dale said. "Could have collapsed under her any day." Nobody said anything after that. They just worked. Kevin measured and cut. Marcus and Brendan framed the base and set the posts. Dale ran the decking boards and drove the screws. Brendan welded the steel pipe rails using a small rig he'd pulled from the back of his truck without being asked. At one point, Margaret opened the front door and asked if they wanted coffee. All four of them said yes. She couldn't bring it out herself, so her daughter, who had arrived around 9, panicked by a text message that read 4 men are building a ramp outside, carried the mugs out on a tray. The daughter's name was Carol. She was in her mid-40s, and she stood on the porch looking at the 4 men in her mother's yard with an expression somewhere between suspicion and disbelief. "My mother says you just showed up," Carol said to Dale. "Yes, ma'am." "She doesn't know you." "She knows my truck," Dale said. He took a sip of coffee. "I've been on this route 11 years. Carol looked at the lumber, the new frame, the clean lines of the structure taking shape. "How much is this costing you?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "That's not what I asked." Dale looked at her steadily. "It's handled." Carol pressed her lips together. She looked like she wanted to argue. Then she looked at the ramp again and something in her face shifted. "My mother hasn't been able to get to her mailbox in 3 weeks," she said. Her voice had gone quieter. "She told me the ramp was fine." Dale nodded. "People do that." "She didn't want to be a burden." Carol's voice cracked on the last word. "She isn't," Dale said simply, and went back to work. They finished at 11:40. The new ramp was solid, square and smooth, pressure-treated boards that would hold for 20 years, steel rails at the right height, a slight lip at the bottom to keep the wheelchair wheels from catching. Dale asked Margaret if she wanted to try it. She wheeled to the top of the ramp and paused. Then she came down slowly, both hands on the rails, the wheels rolling steady and clean on the new wood. She reached the bottom and stopped on the sidewalk. She sat there a moment, facing the street, the morning sun on her face. "I forgot what this felt like," she said. Nobody answered. There was nothing to add. Carol was standing on the porch with both hands over her mouth. The 4 men loaded the scrap wood into the truck, shook hands, said their goodbyes. Margaret thanked each of them by name. She'd asked for their names when they'd had coffee, and she'd remembered all 4. Dale was last. She held his hand a second longer than the others. "Why did you do this?" she asked. He thought about it. "Because I drove past it too many times," he said. She nodded, like that was the most sensible answer in the world. Dale got in the truck and they pulled away from Birchwood Drive. He looked in the mirror once. Margaret was still on the sidewalk, facing the street, watching them go. He didn't look back a second time. So that's the end of the story. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. Sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is show up, without being asked, without being thanked in advance, and without making it about themselves. If this story moved you, subscribe. We tell stories like this every week.